Hey, Shaheen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Cynthia. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Yes, I love this topic that we've chosen, just around kind of listening to your inner voices and aligning with just better decisions. And it's just so important to be able to trust yourself in your business around your decisions. But before we dive into that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience?
Oh, thank you. So my name is Shaheen Plunier. I'm an empowerment coach, and I'll touch on that maybe in a conversation. I live in Southern California. I've got three boys. They're like teenage men now, and yeah, I know it's wild. And I come to you with like much experience, over 20 years of entrepreneurial, owning several businesses. Um, Also having like a stint in corporate America that didn't go so well, but I had to find that out. And it's all kind of full circle back to, okay, I want to help people, I want to make an impact, and how can I do it in a way that works for me? And so it's again sort of embracing the fact that I am a coach, even though I tried to not be a coach. In 20, I did a full circle. And so here I am. I'm here with you, ready to I love the online space, and I love having met you and the mastermind that we're in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like, and we were kind of talking about this before, I hit record, but this idea of kind of, we follow people online, right? Who inspire us, who give us energy, and it's great. And we need that, right? Because we can't build our businesses alone. We don't want to do it alone. But how have you personally, in your own experience, kind of gotten in touch with and grounded with this is this is something that's aligned with me right now, and yeah, just like feeling that inner trust, right, around decision making and looking at, because there's so many ways we could be running our businesses and marketing, and it can be really overwhelming. So I think it's important to listen internally. So yeah, do you have any kind of ideas about how to get in touch with that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first I want to touch on what you said, and that's doing business today in 2022. So I got certified as a coach in 2016, and it was before I think the online coaching world really was a thing. But I didn't know how to get the support. I didn't know how to build a business, and it was
Right.
pretty much like calling my friends and finding clients one-on-ones. Looking face to face. It was pre-Zoom, right?
Right.
And it proved to be too difficult because I didn't have that support. I didn't have coaches to follow. There was like not a lot. It was just the container that I got my certification in, and then like go build this practice. And so it was too hard. And I'm like, I don't want it. It's just too hard. And so I jumped into like a 9 to 5 and a corporate thing. And flash forward to today in 2022, and speaking about the inner voice, I laugh because I'm here again.
Here you
And
are.
here I am. And so it's so amazing because the environment has changed, and there's all these women who are like out there, like in the online space. And truly, with COVID, the biggest blessing was the world going online in such a powerful way.
Yes.
And, like the ability to do Zoom, people ask me, well, how do you meet your clients? I'm like, Zoom, duh. I don't see anyone face to face. I don't even want to see anyone face to face. Like,
Right.
I'm, I mean, I love my clients, but it's so nice to just pop in and pop off. Um, but it's so the journey, like getting back to this point, it's really been about like listening to my inner voice. And the path hasn't been clear. I started actually like a year and a half ago. I was like pre-nursing. I wanted to be trained to be a midwife because I wanted to
Wow.
work with women. Yeah, I know you didn't know that. Um,
No.
I
Midwives
did
are
all of
like
my
hardcore. I don't know whether to admire them or be scared of them, but like that's just such an intense profession, after my own or my own labor experience, not birth, but yeah.
yeah, no,
It's amazing.
midwives are like, they are fierce warriors. They are amazing. And they help women, right, with this experience of like birthing the mother.
Right.
It's so more than the child. And with having the three boys, I went through my own process. Not that we're going to talk about birth, but but I was like, I want to help and impact women. I want them to know that they're so strong that they can have these babies. And for me, I had this idea of like, okay, I'll do it through this path. And so I followed my intuition and I'm like, okay, so this is the path I'm going to go on. I did all the pre-nursing, I did the sciences, it was intense. And then sort of life happened. And my son had an accident. He broke his femur. And I was like, I can't do nursing school. I can't, like my family, they still need me. And so
Right.
right. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, signs from the universe. And so I took a minute to like really listen to like, what is it like? Okay, so how can I, and it wasn't like me sitting down and having like a lightning bolt moment of like, oh, how can I impact others? And the answer came. It was like, we talked about this a bit earlier. It's like, you don't know until you start doing something. And it's only like once you start doing something that you will actually know. And that's like so annoying because we were just saying, like, we want the strategy, we want the business strategy, we want somebody to come down and be like, this is the way that you're going to succeed. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish it did.
Well, it's always there's a friend who we look at artwork and she always says, "Oh, I can do that." You know, like it's a splash of paint or whatever. I studied fine arts, so and I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't know the process for that." I feel like the same thing is with business. Like we see the external, we see the success, we see whatever we want to see, and we're like, "Oh, like I can just do that. Like I can just step 1, step 2, step 3, like splatter the paint or whatever." But that's not satisfying. And I think the satisfaction and the success comes from that process. Speaking of birthing, you know, the labor process of going
Hey,
through, you know, and we all avoid it, right? We don't want to go, like, don't make me go
yeah,
through that. But that's really where the like the gold is, right? And yeah, it's powerful.
yeah, it is powerful. And I love that metaphor because it's truly like owning your own business and being in the wellness space. And it's a spiritual path. And it's like you have to develop yourself the entire way along because if you don't, it you won't survive. And so like one of the ways of like this sort of like self-development, inner discovery, it's like it's you know, there's you have to listen and then you have to trust. It's like two pieces. So you have to like I was listening to this podcast today, Taylor's podcast on alignment, and it's like alignment is just being aligned to your truth. That's it. Because you're in alignment, it doesn't mean that it's easy. More than likely it's not going to be easy, but like you so when we think about like being in touch with our inner voice, being in touch with our higher self, staying in alignment, it's like the question really is, what is your truth? And in business, you're selling your truth, right? It's like, I believe this. Like, I believe we are should be empowered beings, that we are not broken, we're resourceful, we don't need fixing, we are so capable of finding our own way.
Right.
And you know, somewhere along the way, we give our power away. And then like we were talking about, we give our power away to like maybe a program or a coach, and like this is a strategy. And through doing it, we realize that's not, of course, it's not realistic. Number two, it's not fair to you, nor to the coach, nor to the program, but it's part of the process. We have to, so I don't know, we have to go through it. We have to go through it to realize, oh, so it is true that you do take one thing from somebody and another thing from somebody, and then you bring it together and you make it your own. But you won't know until you try. And then we have the perfectionist voice that comes in that's like, well, if you're going to do it, it has to be perfect.
Yes. Driving us crazy.
It has to be perfect. And then that desire and the quest to be perfectionists, which we all have, I think most people do, we get frozen. And then then we start over again.
Yeah.
So it's like all like the process is like, okay, just really getting to know yourself. I feel like every day is a new day. Like I might sound a little crazy, but I literally am a different person every day.
So refreshing, right? You don't need to like cling on to anything. Who do I want to be today?
Right. It's like, oh yeah, so this is for me, this is not for me. Today I'm feeling this, and you know, what's in alignment. And, you know, we touched on the pivot briefly about, you know, about being a business owner and pivoting and like what that looks like. And I have so much, you know, not anymore. I had to work through a ton of shame because I got to the coaching space and I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on spirituality. I'm like, no, that's just too one thing. And then it's like, okay, I really want to do boundaries. Then it's like, okay, boundaries, it's very constricting. That feels, and so then I'm like, okay, I'm going to become a business coach because everyone else is a business coach. I have a big business background. I have an MBA. I've got all the things. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is falling so flat. And my clients are telling me, what are you doing? Nobody's listening to you. You're not a business coach. And, oh, Shaheen. So the process of like checking in is so common to myself. And I think for everyone else, like for anyone listening, like it's okay to make those pivots. It's okay to listen to your intuition, to your inner voice, and be like, yeah, that was for me, but now it's not. And giving
Yeah.
yourself the grace and the space to and just the funness and the lightness to try something different too. There's so not any shame. We think that everyone is watching and judging, and really people are busy.
Yeah.
They're so busy with their own lives. Like, actually, I don't think that anyone really even notices what I'm doing.
Well, they see you're trying, they see you're putting out offers and things, but I think the mistake, and is this idea of like, this is the thing that's gonna explode my business. And we put all this pressure on this one thing. And I think that's where the shame comes from, because we feel like suddenly there should be all these results, instead of, like you said, approaching it from a more light, curious, creative stance of like, let's try this. I feel like doing this. And then, if it works, then it could be like, ooh, let's do a little more of that or less. But the truth is, no one's got it all figured out. Everybody's experimenting. So, why lie to ourselves of like, oh, this is like the thing? Because even if you
Right.
found the thing, you probably get bored of that anyway, and you're going to try
That's right.
another thing, right? So it's an ongoing experimentation in many ways.
Exactly. Exactly. And so much of it has to do with really trusting yourself. Everything is about trusting yourself, being decisive, and then trying it again. If you liked it and it didn't work the first time, if you didn't get a ton of clients, you rework it, you do it again, you give yourself another chance. Like, it's not like we attach our whole identity and our self-worth to like the outcome. That's not correct thinking. It's normal thinking, but it's the kind of thinking that will take you into a spiral, which we're trying to avoid, right? We want to move through this really quickly so that we figure out what is working for us of the process and what isn't working for us.
Right.
Yeah, it's all, every day. You have to just like check in, like, what's going on? What's happening? Is it working? What do I like about this? Yeah, it's really a spiritual journey.
So when you find like, okay, I'll walk you through what I do. When I made a decision
Mhm.
that looks like didn't work really well, whatever, failure, if you want to call it, like capital F, failure. I usually like sit myself down and I'm like, okay, what really happened here? And I try and just remove, or just honestly look at my own judgment, my own fears. But I try to remove all that quickly and just look at it for as like an experiment, like we just said, and with curiosity, and almost like if I was talking to a friend, like I'll talk to myself through it. And that helps me, like you said, kind of extract the learnings so I can, make the next best decision. So
Right.
that's what works for me. Now, sometimes, yeah, there's a lot of emotion that comes out initially, and it takes me a couple days to like process that. But once I get over that and I get over myself, I'm like, okay, what do I want to learn from this? How do
Oh,
you like, what's your process with like moving through these kind of decisions? And like, because I think the point is just coming back to that alignment of and trust of like, okay, it's okay. Like I can trust myself to go forward, basically.
yeah. Oh, well, first of all, I love your process. I think it's brilliant and it's perfect. And for me, I do all those things. And one thing that I really do is I go back and I look at the person I was then and where I was coming from. And then I extract a lot of compassion for that person, because we tend to want to beat up on ourselves. And it's like, oh, Shaheen, you did the best you could, and you were just coming off of this, and you were into this space, and you were really hopeful. And I really take like the positive aspects, and of the person that was showing up that day, and I congratulate her in a sense. So there's like a little
Oh,
bit
I
of
love
healing.
that.
Yeah, like a little bit of healing that goes on of like, Shaheen, why don't be so hard on yourself? You did the best you could. Look at all these things that you brought. You brought courage, you brought strength, you brought amazing, enthusiasm, and a lot of like optimism, and maybe, I forgot, I don't know the word, but it could be made fun of the optimist, the what is this, whatever optimist person.
Yeah,
Um,
like glass half full kind
yes, yes. And it's like
of.
those things are the good things. So bring them forth in this, and then because literally we did nothing wrong, but we want to punish ourselves. So I go back and I make peace with that person and I love her for that. And I'm like, well, this time it's going to be better because I have that information and then I have all the things I've learned between then and now.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think for me, what I've realized is that I used to motivate myself with the punishment. Like that was my motor to keep going. And that was effective, but it wasn't really nice. And so over time, I've had to swap that with a more compassionate, like you said, and motivate myself in different ways because the punishment, the whip can be very motivating, right? To keep going.
Yes. And I've spent my whole year, like my whole entire life, like beating myself up. But if I really would like be in a dark hole if I really were to like not be okay with all the pivots that I've made,
Yes.
because it's like, oh, so I wasted a year going to pre-nursing when everyone around me probably was like, you can't even like see blood. What are you thinking? But they gave me the space and they gave me the time to figure it out on my own. So yeah, the faster we can release the whip, even though it is a motivator, it's one that will lead to burnout for sure.
Well, I'm
We'll
sure
burn
you
our.
learned tons of things in pre-nursing that now you're using.
If I could retain it. If I had the memory of like, an elephant and I could actually retain it. But I loved it though. And the human body is very, it's a brilliant thing, brilliant specimen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
try to remind myself that each, like for me, like I've already shared with you, is that at the beginning of this year, I had pivoted to therapists and counselors. And
Right.
now I'm pivoting away from that niche. And I don't regret that because I learned so much from that audience. And I had many fantastic conversations with potential clients. And now I have more insights of like what they need and how I want to help people. So even though looking back, it could feel like, oh, I wasted or whatever, it's like, no, I needed that. And I can continue to trust because I think that's the logic is like, oh, I'm going to make, yeah, you're going to make, mistakes in the future too. But that's kind of where the lessons are as well. Like the lessons are in the wins and also in the mistakes.
Right. That's right. And it makes this like beautiful tapestry of the carpet, that we are woven from. It's who we are. And I love that you made that pivot and that you're, letting yourself make it. And
Yeah.
you've, and it's good. And but you wouldn't know if you hadn't have tried
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, I would be doubting that I didn't make I didn't try that.
Yeah. Worried about what others think. I mean, you're really being bold and courageous and putting all that aside. And those are the real
Yeah.
things. Those are real voices. We're always worried. I'm worried about what people think of me. And we just have to hold on to like, it's bigger than us, right? This is bigger than us.
Yeah.
Your mission
Yes.
is.
Sometimes when you're in it, it can just feel so deep, but then you look back and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. You're like, whatever.
Especially if you're like an emotional feeling person, it can get very, very, very heavy. And then we have to give ourselves the time to go through it. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
We have to give it, we can't sort of push it aside, and otherwise it comes back up in other funny ways later in the future. So
Yeah.
yeah, the giving ourselves the compassion, the space to move through it, and then now, but then we can look back and laugh and be like, oh, I took that really seriously. It's okay.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to slip into like a victim mentality with these mistakes as well of like, that person told me to do that and it's their
Yeah.
fault, or, you just want to start blaming someone. And I found it helpful to just be honest and say to myself, look, like this is hard right now. I'm just struggling with this decision, or I'm struggling with this area. And that's okay. Like it's okay for it to be hard sometimes. And it's not every day. And so I try to remind myself, like, I've made other hard decisions in the past. I got through them. I'll get through this one. And instead of like moving to more of a victim or blame, because that's not helpful either. Like you just end up resentful, and that's not the type of energy you want to be in at all.
Well, you're doing like such a good job of listening to your inner voice, because it's like something inside of you is like, oh, this isn't quite right.
Right.
Because it could be the right decision and it could be hard, but that's different than it not being right.
Yeah.
It could be like aligned with who you are. And yes, it will still be difficult, but it doesn't matter because it's that that's your truth.
Right.
Audience is bigger. Your market's bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's such a process. I never knew that this whole journey would be like this whole road to like enlightenment or not enlightenment or learning so much about
Wisdom.
myself.
Yeah.
Wisdom, yeah. Yeah. And owning, and like you said, owning your mistakes, taking ownership, not giving it away, not blaming programs or coaches, which I've done in the past. And I laugh at it now. I'm like, oh, that was unfair to me. It was unfair to them. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't know until we talked about that earlier, but until I did it. Then I'm like, oh, that's not the way to be. That's not the way I want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So to wrap up the
Yeah.
conversation, what would you say is one tip to someone who, right now they're feeling kind of stuck or lost with what to do next in their business, whether it's like their marketing or maybe the type of audience they're trying to attract? What would you say to this listener?
Yeah, no, this is me too often in the course of my day. I think this may not be a popular response or piece of advice. I think to detach is the best advice. Like if when we are like it's so in our head and we can't figure it out and we're spinning, spinning, spinning. I know for me, if I can give myself 24 hours of not thinking about something and literally doing a lot of self-care, like taking a walk, being in nature, listening to podcasts, listening to something inspirational, listening to something bigger than you, and getting out of our heads, getting out of our houses, getting out of the office, that's when I have my biggest clarity. That's when I have my biggest sort of like aha moments. So
Mm.
it'd be really like we want to micromanage and we end up like sort of what is the word? Strangling ourselves because we're like, I need to know, I need to figure this out now. But when we're operating from a place like that, the answers aren't there for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like, for me, my advice would be to take as much time as you can, a day, an hour, whatever that looks like,
Mm-hmm.
purposely disconnect, put your phone down, let it go, and literally go outside and do something different.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say like the best ideas never happen in front of a screen, right? It's
That's
always
right.
when you're in the shower or you're on
Right.
vacation or like, yeah, you're talking with a friend. And it's
Yes.
like, it's never when you're like looking at, so it's just important to step away.
Yeah. And it's the opposite of what we want to do. But
Yeah.
it's the exact thing that that will help us find the answers.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, this
Oh,
was so good. Uh,
Cynthia. So
so
much fun chatting.
where can people hang out or like find more about what you do and your coaching services?
Oh yeah. So there's my website, ShaheenPlunier.com, and then on Instagram at Shaheen Plunier. And yeah, it's so yeah, check me out on social media or website. I have a free event coming up about empowering women in their relationships to really, that's a whole nother subject. But again, I had to pivot and give myself grace and be like, this is really interesting. There's something here that I want to bring to the world. So yeah, those are the two best ways, and Facebook too.
Awesome. I will include those links in the show notes. This was so great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know, it's so much fun. I'm so happy I did this. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank
You're
you.
amazing.
All
Okay.
right. Bye.
Bye.